I think the toughest adjustment was before my son came to earth. So I remember the day they said, it's a boy. And I shook the walls in that doctor's office celebrating and thought about all the things that young men think about when they hear they're going to have a mini me, the football games and coaching the games and working on cars. And that's another gift God didn't give me. I don't know why that ran through my head, but I did. I have visions. I ain't got nothing going on.
My brother been lacking in a lot of areas. You want to throw it all on his son. Hey, son, I ain't got none of this, but hopefully you can redeem us.
Yeah, exactly. So, in that day when they told us, your son is going to possibly be disabled. So they told us that. And then we had a checkup a month later, and they were like, all we see on this screen is a healthy baby. So I started playing in the football games, the baseball games, the camping and the Boy Scouts and all that. And the day he was born, he didn't cry and wail like most babies do.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, something's wrong. I was like, what's wrong? He's beautiful. And they said, no, he's not crying. We have to take him down to the NICU unit. And he was there for 2 weeks. And so I say all this to say,
Top of the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to you. I am your host, AntMoe, and welcome to Cultivating Konversations, where we curate cultivating conversations for the culture. And of course, we have another special guest with us. This is my guy, man. He's an A1 since day one, man. He's been supporting when I had a raggedy iPhone. You know what I'm saying? I was in my closet with two pillows, trying to block out the noise so y'all can hear me crisp on the audio version only. You feel me? This is long before a camera was ever thought about. You know what I'm saying? That was, I think at that time, the podcast was the momentous moment. You know what I'm saying? So the people who been rocking, they know. You know what I'm saying? My audience was church members only. I so graciously would put that in the choir, the choir group me. And went crazy. Numbers was booming. You feel me? But man, I want to introduce to y'all, man, a solid brother, man, a real supporter, man. My boy Kenny Braxton, man. Welcome to Cultivating Konversations, my guy.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Leave me hanging now.
I appreciate the
use the other hand.
I appreciate the great introduction, man, and everything. And it's been fun watching you grow and just really inspirational, just watching your journey, man. So
yeah, man.
I just feel blessed to be here and to be able to have this conversation with you today.
For sure, man. So my thought process behind Cultivating Konversations is, man, I believe that if we can get people to buy into who you are, they'll always be able to buy into what you got going on, whatever your business may be. Whatever, whatever in general, the things that are near and dear to your heart, when people can know what your heart is, they can know, they can want to buy into who Kenny is, you know what I'm saying? So, man, so let's start off, man, by, I love to like pretty much start off with something that might not be the prototypical thing. Like, growing up, what was your introduction to music?
Music, I would have to say Michael Jackson, MJ. Actually, this is how old I am, the Jackson 5.
So you was the original. You was with the original group. Like
I was when Michael Jackson was a few pigments darker than what he was when he passed
a few
away.
Pigments darker, crazy. So, all right, that does give. Now, mind you, this is a hot take that might not be such a hot take. I don't think Michael Jackson's music ages very well. I mean, in my humble opinion, now Jackson 5 may be a different feel, but we're talking about straight Mike Jack. Like, when's the last time you listened to like Thriller just on man, it's Friday, I'm finna put on the Mike soundtrack?
About 2 or 3 days ago.
You cap. All right, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I'm on Michael Jackson a couple of days a week, either on my workout playlist or just trying to set a mood on my commute into work. It's Michael Jackson for me, man. It's MJ.
Really? This is really news to me. I'm not gonna lie to you. It might be an era thing, but it's like, I'm finna piss you off with this one. I personally am one who don't think Tupac's music ages very well.
Yeah, you're gonna piss me off. And now
He's like,
this has been a setup the whole
he's
time.
like, I don't support you anymore.
You were trying to take down both of the kings,
bro. Dear mama, come on, like
you got to do it for the ladies, man, and the mamas.
Okay, the crack mamas, or we just talk about anybody?
We're talking about mamas.
It was cool for the time, man. That's my real thought process. People who know me from other platforms, it may seem like I'm trying to troll, but I'm like, I really don't. Cool, cause Tupac was cool. Like, I don't know, man. I ain't put on a Tupac record in years.
Well, I'm so much about, even with the Michael Jackson topic, I'm so much about art, right? In its true art form, where you are saying something that impacts the culture. And one thing that can't be debated or defeated or denied is both of these men impacted the culture. Now, fight me on that.
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, Glorilla impacted the culture. What is that saying?
I don't know. She's all right. She can help you bob your head on your way to work and all that. But I'm talking about true art, the things that make you have a different perspective. That's what art is to me. Whether it's a play that you attend, a movie you watch, or a song that you listen to, after it's said and done, has it impacted your life and given you some kind of different perspective on how to approach something?
All right, we let you get on your soapbox. Moving on. We'll agree to disagree. So Mike, Jack, and Tupac, y'all cool, but we moving on. But no, so clearly the music is universal. Where did you come up at? Like, what was the impact that music had on you at the time? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where you hail from?
Well, my father was in the military, so I actually lived all over. I was born in Denver, then we moved to the Philippines, then New Jersey. But if I had to claim a town at all, I really went to school in Arlington. So I grew up in Arlington. I actually grew up exactly where the Cowboys Stadium sits today. My bus stop was right out there at the entrance. So North Arlington, man. And it's interesting because 30, almost 40 years later, everything in that area looks the same except where the stadium is. The Jack in the Box, one of my first jobs across the street, is still there. Those
Jack in the Crack.
Yeah. Jerry hadn't gotten to that part to tear that up yet. The check cash and place, all that's there. Even the Motel 6 where the crack dealers used to do their thing, it's there too. That used to be the crack headquarters right over there at the motel. It was crazy back in the day, but yeah, that's where I'm from, North Arlington.
From North Arlington. Been all over. But you got on an LA cap. And I know you personally to be a LA fanatic. What is the deal with that?
Well, to be honest with you, I relocated to Orange County about 15 years ago for a work assignment. And I'm glad you asked this question because I've always wanted to defend this topic.
Because we ain't understanding, bro.
Yeah. So you're a Bible man like me, and I believe that every man has what is a fork in the road, or even a road to Damascus, where you have an enlightening moment which changes your life forever. Mm-hmm. And in that short stint where I lived in Southern California for 18 months, I just really grew up and found myself. And I was exposed to a different kind of people, a different kind of lifestyle, a different kind of way of just walking and talking and thinking. And the town just really embraced me in such a way that it's something about the energy and even the air there that inspires me. And for a lot of people, they don't understand it because they just think it's a crazy place and it's full of debauchery and deviltry. But there's something unique about the experience I had.
All the truth, but I digress. Keep going. I'm sorry.
It's right outside this window too, but we won't talk about that right now. But for me, I found myself and became a man. And I'll always be grateful for that town. And, yeah, I'll always rock L.A. Most of the time when you don't see me at my desk at work, I'm going to have something on that screams out L.A. for sure.
So you're definitely bringing me to two different thoughts of mine. I think it's definitely important when you look at the deeper portion of that, of finding yourself. What did you need to find there? Like, what was missing that you were able to discover? You get what I'm saying? You said you found yourself there. What were you? Did you know you were even in search of something? You get what I'm saying? Okay.
I did not. It's kind of like being knocked in the head and you wake up and you say, there's a whole new world and there's something here. But with me, I didn't even know this about myself. because I've always felt like I walked with a certain level of swagger, but I think that I lacked self-love until I got to LA. And it's something about being a country Texas boy and going to hippie land in LA where it's very free, where you have to really be grounded in who you are. And being in an unknown land, I really had to just get a grip on not only who I was as a person and discover who I was as a person, but also be grounded in my faith. Because I mean, when you're a young man in their late 20s, early 30s, there's a lot of temptation being by the beach and being around the audience in the beach, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you trying to play hide the noodle. Yeah, I get it.
So with me, I mean, it's much more bigger than that, though. I met a lot of friends that I'm really close with, and it was the first time in my adult life where I was surrounded by so many people in what's known as an artificial town that were so authentic and so raw. And that's just something I'll always appreciate.
Yeah. So looking ahead, of course, we're dealing with, the fallout of all of the fires and stuff. That place is one of the places definitely affected by all of that. Like, how does that translate when you look at like just somewhere like another place where you almost reared the second half of your life in a sense? Like, how do you connect to that? Or is it kind of hard to because you've been here for so long?
No, I think what the fires is telling me is what it should be telling everybody else is that it's just like when the rain hit the other night, it hit at the penthouse and it hit at the crack house, right? Like tragedy can strike anywhere, and LA has always had the reputation. If you want to go somewhere and see something beautiful and sexy, go to LA. But I think what God is trying to tell us is tragedy can strike anywhere, and no matter where you fit on a socioeconomic platform, that you are not infallible to misfortune. So for me, my heart goes out to anybody, whether I just read the other day that I think Mel Gibson's house was hit.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's people that wasn't on the Mel Gibson level that their house was hit too. So, and I go out to LA as much as I can. As a matter of fact, I have to be in the Inland Empire for a speaking engagement in about a month. And I was like, originally before these fires hit, I said, yeah, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna work, but then I'm gonna chill for the weekend and make a weekend out of it. And I think for me, for a town that I'm always rocking their gear and screaming out LA, instead of making this fun weekend out of it, I'm looking for opportunities where I can contribute and volunteer. And a lot of times you think of volunteering, giving back, well, let's just write a check. But I really think devoting your time is a little more impactful. So whether it's handing out water or, helping at Red Cross or whatever, I really want to be there just to directly help people, even if it's just for a few hours.
Right. And I think essentially what you're referencing when I think about scripture, it's the idea where it says, God reigns on the just as well as the unjust. It's like, he's no respecter of persons. In a good way, what he'll do for one, he'll do for another. But the person that sits high has the rich man health. If your health gets bad, are you really rich? You know what I'm saying? So it's that whole concept that, light, God is kind of showing us the reality of duality in a way. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what really makes you rich? All those type of things. So it's like, to have the who's have to rebuild, or even the person who's been there for 50 years and, he loses everything. He may have migrated there from another country and now he's lost everything. I've literally seen those stories. So it's definitely heart-wrenching, man. And I hate it, man. I don't like to get into the conspiracy theory side of it. Not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm just not big on it. I think that's the last thing somebody wants to hear that's been dealing with something is, they were trying to displace you, right? It's like, bro, y'all gotta chill. And like you're saying, just be present for people. Show love to people. And at least if you're gonna run your mouth about the big whatever that's behind it, then yeah, maybe you should just send a couple bucks or something. You know what I'm saying? That's the least you could do for their trouble. So but you just spoke to something that I wanted to start highlighting. because anybody who's seen you on social media, you know, I was gonna say earlier you had said something about confidence. I was gonna say shout out to Dre Dillard. Confidence is key herself. You know, when you were speaking about confidence, but you know, you hosted, you know, the first annual, you know, TDE. So, well, yeah, TDE, right? The Dillard Experience. Yeah, I want to make sure I ain't mess that up. But you know, how did you get introduced to speaking? Because for those of you who don't know, you know, he's the big man on campus. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if he's still in recruit. He was in recruit at one point. He still was probably getting to a bag then, but you know, now you're traveling, speaking, you know, opportunities to be on boards and things of that nature. How did you get introduced to the idea of speaking and embracing that?
Well, you know, the word says, and someone that I look up to really honed in on this for me, that your gift will make room for you. And I think we spend a lot of time searching and watching other people, whether it's on social media or television or people that we work with or grew up with. And we say, it's so funny how my chapters have flipped, because growing up, out of all people, I wanted to be an athlete, knowing good and well I ain't coordinated. And don't
You
have
ain't not being coordinated. I'm going to the NBA. It's crazy work.
So I'll try to make this long story cliff noted and quick. I remember my freshman year at Prairie View A&M.
Take it slow. Don't feel like you got to rush. We want to hear your story, my brother.
Okay. So I as you know, that's how we met. We were in a church play together. So I've always loved the arts. I've always been into acting and performing. And when I was at Prairie View A&M, within the first month of me being a student, being a communication and journalism major, I changed my major to theater arts. And there, if you were a freshman, before you could even be in a big production, you had to be a part of this show they called New Faces. And it was for all the new talent on campus in the theater program.
Okay.
And all my classmates were doing monologues or interpretive dance. I definitely couldn't do that because God didn't give me that gift. Or poetry or something like that, or slam speaking and all that. And I auditioned to do, I want to say it was a monologue by either James Baldwin or August Wilson. It may have been one of August Wilson plays. Anyways, nevertheless, my theater professor said, you ain't an actor more than a man in the moon, but you're a writer. What I want you to do is I want you to write a speech about violence on campus, and that's what you're going to do. And I felt like that was so boring. I'd already been in a lot of plays in high school and junior high. I wanted to show out on the yard.
Wait a minute. Take me slow here. The man told you you're not a bit more of an actor than the man on the moon. What? How did you feel about that, bruh? I'm like, you just said you had already had some extensive work there. Yeah. And he like, you ain't no actor, bro. Go look, write the stuff.
Well, yeah, I definitely, my feelings were hurt and I was offended at the time, but I could tell you 30 years later, while he was wrong, I see what he was trying to do. He was trying to pull something out different than me. And that's what we don't spend a lot of time doing as people, finding what's unique in you. We all have something unique. There's 5,000 writers probably within the 10-mile radius of where we're sitting right now. Mm-hmm. But there's something very unique about each one of those writers and public speakers that makes someone quench for that talent. Yep. And that's what I try to tell some of the young people. I run the university program at my corporate job, and I speak to the students every year, and I say, a lot of you guys are studying for engineering, and there's millions upon millions of engineers, but I guarantee you there is something unique about the way you engineer that can make you famous or a millionaire. Not that it's about money,
right?
But that's one of the things that God has given us, something amongst millions of people that's just unique. And I look back at him, God rest his soul, as Professor C. Lee Turner. He saw something in me back then that made me different. And I think part of him was like, nobody just wants to sit through 2 hours of monologues and interpretive dance. Let's have a flavor. And I have a student here that could do it. Very articulate, can write. And my mom blessed me with being able to be articulate. You talk about getting beatings for leaving food out, cold food on the table. I would get in trouble for saying this and that. So my mom honed that gift a little bit. So so long story short, that's where my public speaking career started. And then after I transitioned into corporate America, because of my theater background, I was surrounded by a lot of people that were shy and didn't want to do a lot of public speaking, like the new hire orientations and stuff like that. So I just constantly began to get tapped on the shoulder. And at some point I said, wait a minute, this is my thing. And I think that everybody has that one thing. We think of Coach Prime now, and I know that he could be controversial, and even some people think that he's brash. But the one thing that can't be denied is his one thing opened up a lot of doors and windows for him. And his one thing was just his natural athletic ability that gave him a platform to be able to go from being a superstar on the baseball field and the football field to being a rap artist, to drop a rap album, to a public speaker. Yeah. And now, a mentor to young men and a college coach. So I think that we all have this one thing that no matter what it is, whether it's acting or public speaking, that could open out a lot of doors and windows for you. So that's kind of what happened for me. And, I'm a firm believer that your gift is something that you do effortlessly, and you don't really think about money when you're doing it. Now, if you can draw a paycheck out of it, and I believe you can, that's a blessing in its own right. I think you should seek that and not be shy and overly humble about that. But your gift is what gives you peace at night. And that's why people get frustrated on jobs, because they put all their eggs in that job basket, what they do to put food in the table, instead of coming home to that gift and the thing that really brings you joy that you can do effortlessly. So for me, I would say I'm not going to quit tomorrow, but I'm in the autumn season when it comes to work. I'll be 51 years old if God says the same in about a month. And I have to start thinking about what that next chapter looks like. And I'm hoping that I can continue to draw a paycheck way after my corporate life by being a motivational speaker or just a consultant where I go and speak on culture for different companies or churches or even youth organizations.
So I hear something in there where you went in with a certain idea or vision for how you wanted to go about doing whatever it was that was inside of you, having a love for the arts, being able to act, or, even having experience on it in that, and then seeing a professor who says, I want you to take a different route. Some people could take that type of thing to really take them down to a dark place to where maybe you don't even want to be a part of it anymore because it didn't necessarily feed what you wanted it to be. How were you able to what made it easier to embrace that shift, as well as the people nudging you not nudging you on your shoulders, so to speak, to say, hey, we want you to do this? Was it a process, or was it one of those things where it was like it became an easy thing because maybe you embrace change better than most?
I think it was lots of if I could be honest with you, it was a lot of peaks and valleys. I wish I could tell you, like, I woke up and then I just didn't do anything else but public speak. I continue to act, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't that bad at that either.
Yeah.
But that's just one of the gifts. I really do think my primary gift is just opening my mouth and public speaking. And when I say there were peaks or valleys, there were times I honestly doubted myself. There were times, I can tell you, even last September when this organization sent me out to speak in the Inland Empire, I remember thinking, oh my God, how can I get out of this? They really want me. Why me? Well, then I get a call. I did it, felt good about it, got a great reception. And I remember it was like right before Thanksgiving a couple months ago, my wife and I were out shouting, and my contact from that organization called me and said, hey, I don't mean to bother you on a Saturday. I just want you to know that we just met as an organization, and we ranked all our speakers. You were the only speaker outside of California that came in, but you were ranked number one. So yeah. I think it is very important to, first of all, trust God, right? And trust the gift that God gave you. Because sometimes we go through this self-doubting thing, and it's really a lack of faith. We're not exercising our faith. But going back to what I said earlier, your gift will make room for you. And sometimes that room is just having peace at night. Because let me tell you something right now. Imposter syndrome could be deadly. And I've definitely suffered through that. So to tell you, hey, well, to give you an easy answer on, well, what made it easy? Sometimes it's not easy. sometimes it's very challenging because we're all human.
Yeah.
And I feel like each mountain you climb, if you really are concentrating on your success and impacting other people, you're gonna face giants that make you feel nervous, just like David felt when he was on that battlefield with Goliath. So that's kind of what's happened to me throughout my life.
So I'm thinking about this, right? You brought up David. I'm thinking about Elijah, and I'm thinking about a man who did all of these great feats under the strength of the Holy Spirit, that God gave him the power to be a great prophet and all of those things in his time. Jezebel, which people often misuse what her real power was or what her real thing was, it was a spirit of manipulation.
Yeah.
It wasn't that she was the whore of Babylon. We have to stop using that out of context. But this great man of God, allowed the words of a woman, and not to cast a big light on the fact that it was a woman. The reality is it was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So he allowed the words of a woman, and even if it was a man, for those of you feminists out there, even if it would have been a man, just the fact that he allowed words alone to combat the great things that God had did in his life up until that point, it kind of is unfathomable to me. So it's like when I think about what you were just saying, I'm like, if you've done this over and over again, you went from killing it on stages to killing it in a different way on stages. What is that thing, no matter how big the giant may seem, that has made you deal with that am I good enough thing? Like, can you even identify what that is? Because you seem to face any challenge that has came your way and knocked it out the park.
I think it's a misinterpretation sometimes of what humility really is. You always want to stay in that box where you say, okay, and I know myself, and God knows me. One of my close friends years ago said, Kenny, you know what you are? I said, yeah, I'm Kenny. She said, no, this is what you are. You are 100%er. You're going to be all 100% in, or you're going to be 100% out. And since she said that, first of all, I immediately agreed with her. I was like, yeah, that's very true. I can't even argue about that. So,
you are? I'm Kenny. That is hilarious.
I'm Kenny Braxton.
I'm Kenny, duh.
Come on, you don't know I'm Kenny.
No, fool.
So, I think I've always sought that middle ground, and maybe I need to stop doing that. So a purpose in my heart, 2025 is that year where I just go into it. And some people gonna like your steak when they come to your house, and some people just gonna think you didn't put enough Lowry's on it. And that's okay, because my gift is public speaking. I know that about myself. I ain't gonna dance. I can't shoot no hoops. I can't play no ball. But I can get in front of a mic and talk.
That's tough. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. To be a black man, no rhythm, can't dance, can't play sports. Hey, bro, you had to be cold on that stage, dog. Nah, but
I don't meet the prototype. I just don't meet the prototype. I've tried. I was good at it.
I can dig it. I can dig it, man, and I can respect that too, man. I think the tough thing about us as men sometimes is being comfortable with the middle ground. If that makes any sense. It's like man, I just want to get in where I fit in and just do my thing. And I think that could be a dangerous place because there's no growth there. You kind of you're going to hit a cap, You need people in your life, whether that's good friends, a spouse, which we're going to transition into that ideal of life for you. But it's like, man, somebody to push you to do more. Kind of talk to me about marriage, man, how you implemented marriage, how maybe it challenged you in some new ways, how it helped you in other ways. Like, just kind of give us the rundown on the post marriage Kenny and how it shaped your life.
Yeah, for me, is you kind of got into some of the stuff earlier when you said it's important to have somebody in your life that pushes you. And one of the things that initially attracted me about my wife, when she went after something, talk about 100%er, she went all in. My wife, Cordelia, she just doesn't give up, and she doesn't allow anybody to give up. So I think, I have a special needs son. And I remember our first Christmas together. She was like, well, what are you going to get Trey? And I said, I haven't even figured it out yet. And she said, I think we need to get him one of those Hot Wheel things where he can get on it and drive around the neighborhood. And I said, well, Trey's disabled. He doesn't have the cognitive and, motor skills to be able to do that. And she was like, why are you doubting your own son? And I said, no, this is a scientific thing. Like, I ain't about to drop $350 on something we're going to look at. And she was just determined. So we got it. I think it was like an ATV. We got that ATV, spent all night putting it together the night before, which also isn't a gift for me to put stuff together some kind of way we did it. And Christmas morning, I never get, she was like, put him on it. And we put him on it, and he drove all around the neighborhood in it. She taught him how to swim. When we were dating, I remember one time I heard a bunch of giggling, and it was Trey's voice upstairs in the house. And I said, what is he laughing at? Well, Trey had never stood up and taken a shower on his own. Back then, he was 6 or 7 maybe. He had never stood up and took a shower on his own. And he was up there in the shower, and he was giggling because he was accomplishing something that made him happy. I said, what is he doing? And she said, he's almost a grown man in this house. Don't have to take a shower. So she's always challenged him that way. And that's motivation in its own right. But I would also say that when you pick a spouse, and you're going to go through rough times, again, peaks and valleys, right? But what's always brought me back is I've asked myself a question each time, and she's asked the same question. Am I a better person now or before I met this person? And if you could honestly say, yes, my life is better than what it would have been without this person, you're in the right situation. I also, even before we said I do, knew that I met a friend. I'll be honest, this is my second marriage.
Yeah.
And we always just come back to friendship, man. I think that's important because it's one thing about, a side dish, a side piece, or whatever they call the people that are not our girlfriend.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever they call these days. I'm old now. I don't know what they're called. That's not your wife or girlfriend or whatever the new name is for girlfriend. That's the box it stays in.
Yeah.
But when you have a girlfriend or a boo and a wife and a friend, you get back to, wait a minute, I'm in an argument with my friend. Or wait a minute, I'm not speaking to my friend. And when you truly have a friend, you miss that friend. And you not only miss that friend, you need that friend.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's done for me. And it's also given me a level of responsibility mentally and emotionally where I just kind of feel like, people are depending on me, not only depending on me, but rooting for me. So I have a lot to live up to. And for me, at this point in my life, I just want to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Man, so second marriage. How long were you married the first time?
About 2 years, maybe.
About 2 years. So how long you been married this time?
September will be 13 years.
13 years. What did your first marriage teach you? What did you learn from I consider I've been divorced. I consider it a failure for whatever the reason. Like, it is what it is. So I'm not trying to disrespect whatever was your situation, but what has not staying married that first go round, what did it teach you about going into marriage the second time?
I think, first of all, not to bring in outside influences into your relationship. I think the first marriage, not only was this person who I dare not bash, the mother of my child. I've been knowing her since I was 14 years old. Great human being, great mom. But I don't think we established a friendship like what I have in my wife. And at the end of the day, God has somebody for you. So I would first say that who I am with now, that is who God wanted me to be with. But also the big thing is outside influences.
Yeah.
So I purpose in my heart, if we have a falling out, I'm not going to run to 50 60 people and say, well, what do you think? What do you think? You know what they say about opinions. So,
no, Kenny, what do they say? Nah.
So, yeah, we just are very careful with that. I'm not going to say, we all have buddies that we talk to or whatever, but I'm very discreet who I allow in my relationship and the matters of my private matters. It's very sacred, and I just try to stay true to that, and so does she.
I can dig that, man. I could dig that, and always looking to be respectful. It's like in this culture, and it's probably happened since the beginning of time. It's like it's always interesting to me that they were so special, and I just can't. We sleep on the phone, and then it's like y'all get divorced, and then it's like now she or he's the worst person in the world, and I can't believe it's like just shut up. Go heal. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely can understand that, man. So I know one of the interests that you take part in as well is you're a cyclist. You know what I'm saying? You be getting out there on that bike, miles on miles, man. How did you get into that? Because that is something that requires a certain mindset, a certain endurance, and a little change, because you can't just be going there. You ain't out there on no Huffy. You got to go for the creme de la creme, you feel me? So just kind of talk about how you got into the cycling and just what that's kind of even built up in you. You know what I'm saying? So
I've always loved bikes. When I think about my favorite Christmas gifts from Santa Claus, it was a bike I got in 4th grade. But my first fascination, or I would say victory with the bike, is when I didn't know how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Neighborhood kids. I was living in New Jersey, and my older sister had this Star Spangled Banner bike that had the red, white, and blue flags, and they had a banana seat. And they were like, Braxton, you don't know how to ride a bike, ha. And I said, yeah, I do. No, you don't. Yeah, I do. Well, get on this bike right now. Get on your sister's bike. And had never rode a bike before, but I had something to prove. And I got on that bike and took off and didn't fall. And I've loved bikes ever since. But I got into, as an adult, cycling early 2000s. It was my first bike that was more than a Huffy or more than a garage sale bike.
Right.
And I started riding, and I would say back then I was biking. I thought I was doing a little something. And during the pandemic in 2020 is when I joined the Iron Riders Cycling Club of Dallas. Shout out to RIDCC.
Yeah.
And that's when I really learned the true art form of cycling. I am in no means, by any means, a major athlete when it comes to it. But during the pandemic, as we know, it pulled on us emotionally a lot. So for me, it was mental exercise. And there wasn't a lot of cars on the road back then. So I was literally getting up with a friend of mine at 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and we would ride 25, 30 miles and be in front of our computers at 8:30, 9 o'clock to work virtually. So, from there, I just learned what it was doing for me, and emotionally and mentally, that was the exercise right there. And then there were some benefits physically after that. So it's something I still love to do. I'm doing it more indoors now that it's wintertime. But I've actually set a few goals this year to keep me into it. So one of the things I'm excited about, on March 15th, I'm doing what's called the Selma Ride in Alabama, and it's actually a replica of the Selma March. So we're riding from Montgomery, Alabama to Selma, just like they did, and it's a 51-mile ride.
Wow. Man, shout out to y'all boys, man, because you know what I'm saying? That sound like a little too rich for my blood, but I mean, I could dig it, though, seriously, man. Man, you just sound like you've lived some life, you've travailed through a lot, and you still ended up it's, you don't ever want to overclassify somebody's life as like, oh, you've made it, but it's like, I think you just have a knack for not even just surviving. I think, yeah, you've made it through different phases of life, but you've always still managed to, what it seems like to me, in a good way, I say, to stay on top. Man, what would you say has been the toughest adjustment in your life thus far? I know you may not have it right off the top of your head, but what is the toughest adjustment that you've had to make in life, and how did you actually get through that?
I think the toughest adjustment was before my son came to earth. So I remember the day they said, it's a boy. And I shook the walls in that doctor's office celebrating and thought about all the things that young men think about when they hear they're going to have a mini-me, you know, the football games and coaching the games and working on cars. And that's another gift God didn't give me. I don't know why that ran through my head, but I did. I have visions. I ain't got nothing going on.
My brother been lacking in a lot of areas. You want to throw it all on the son. Hey, son, I ain't got none of this, but hopefully you can redeem us.
Yeah, exactly. So, in that day when they told us, your son is gonna possibly be disabled, so they told us that, and then we had a checkup a month later, and they were like, all we see on this screen is a healthy baby. So I started playing in the football games, the baseball games, and camping in the Boy Scouts and all that. And the day he was born, he didn't cry and wail like most babies do.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, something's wrong. I was like, what's wrong? He's beautiful. And they said, no, he's not crying. We have to take him down to the NICU unit. And he was there for 2 weeks. And so I say all this to say, kind of shifting my thought process from literally, first of all, I'm at this point in my life and I've learned that there is absolutely nothing you can do anything you want to do and nothing can hold you up if it's a desire and it's a purpose in your heart and it's God's will. So I had to shift my way of thinking of all the things that I saw the world doing with their son and thinking about what I could do with my son to have a happy life.
Yeah.
And it was originally that was tough to accept. And I'm not going to lie to you. There were many years, even looking at social media could be a beast sometimes. You see everybody's kids graduating high school and my son's going to the Army. My son just got a scholarship to play at Auburn. My son is going to the NFL. And I'm like, wow, that could have been me. But I had to accept that was not God's purpose for my life or my son's life. Mm-hmm. And once you accept that, you actually appreciate how rich your life really is.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So my son, I said in the beginning of our discussion that God has deposited something very unique in all of us. And what I learned about my son is he's a light. So right now, Trey lives in what's called a host home, not a group home. For those that think that I put my son away, he'll be 23 in a couple months, but he lives in what's called a host home where he has roommates. It's like his version of college. Yeah. He has roommates. They're on a schedule. Sometimes they go to church together. They do group activities together. So he's learning how to be independent and have a social life. And it's funny, sometimes I'll call his caretaker and say, hey, I was thinking about getting Trey today. What y'all have going on? She gives me a whole list, and I'm like, wow. I got to make an appointment to see Trey.
See my son,
this is a good thing. And she's even told me a couple of times, she's like, yeah, if you don't mind, I know you want to see Trey, and I never keep him from you, but my sister really wants to see him. And I say, see, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. And that's why I say I had this conversation right before I came here. And I told Kiwi, I said, we are all ministers, but not all of us need to be behind the pulpit. There are different ways to minister. And I think that God put Trey on this earth to demonstrate that you can have any kind of challenge in life and still find happiness. And he's the most happy human being that I know.
That's dope.
I've rarely seen that. I was about to call him a boy, but he's a man. I've rarely seen that man sad. Like straight up. And he's a light for our family. He's a light in the community. And I really do think that the world is going to hear a lot more about Trey, way past when I'm gone.
That's strong, man. Man, so I know in our talks you've talked about legacy, and you've even mentioned it today. It's something that I know that is near and dear to your heart. Man, when you think about leaving a legacy, even thinking about your grandpa that you made reference to who left this legacy that people remember him, lived to be a ripe old age of
104.
What does that look like for you? You are 50.
I'll be 51 next month.
So half a century, still moving around. You have a newfound dedication to fitness that's inspirational to me, bruh. Like, what does legacy mean to you? And have you kind of mapped out what it would look like for you to leave your legacy? What does that look like?
I don't think I have the full script, and I don't think I ever will uh, or need to. But I think that when I'm gone, that I've left something to the younger generation in my community and in my family where they know you could do it. Nobody can stop what you want. Your gift can impact millions. And that is what we are here for. My wife and I attended dinner theater in Irving back in November. I'll never get what one of the performers said after the performance is over. He came out and he said, he told this story about he was an accountant. He was working a corporate job just because he got a degree in accounting but he liked acting and arts and stuff. And he said he heard God whisper in his ear and said, I gave you a gift, and it is actually a sin for you to not give that gift. And the reason it's share that gift. And the reason it's a sin is because people suffer with you not utilizing your gift. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want people to know, that your gift may not be your neighbor's gift, but you really have to work on that gift and keep working on that craft, because that gift was deposited into you, not for you to get fat on it and then just enjoy and reap the benefits for yourself. The universe needs that gift.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have small epiphanies of like the realities of life. And it's like the gifts are for the body. They're for the edifying of the body. That's what the word says. And it was like, it was so freeing to me because, shout out to Transformation Global Hub. That's, that's the church that I attend. And Pastor Arthur Johnson always, my pastor, I don't gotta say his whole name, but what he always has us do is like prophesy to each other, like, or to encourage each other. It's like, you hearing anything on here for any one of your brothers or sisters? And it's like, it's so necessary, because if we aren't doing it, then where are they going to get it from? If we're a society full of people who are just selfish and who just look out for themselves, and, well, it's like, if I have any gift that I have, I can prophesy to myself in a way, but it's like, none of those things I can really do for myself. Like, also, I'm just going to lay hands on myself. It's like, no, bruh. Like, everything that God gives you, you have to give it out to somebody else. And so you're hitting the nail on the head for sure. And I believe that as you continue to grow, man, you're definitely trailing a path that God could really use to edify people, to encourage people. It's a lot of people that just need to know that they could do it. It's a lot of people that need to look at this podcast, this show, and see how you have endured different things, how you've always managed to get ahead of the curve. I think that's some of the most brilliant, genius things, is like knowing the trends of your life and being able to get on the wave to where now you're not getting hit by the back spin of the waves, because now they knocking you in the other. You know what it's like, get ahead of it as God is leading you. Like, follow the promptings versus trying to fight against them because it's not what you have in mind.
Yeah, I would also say it's important for me to share because, first of all, I don't think I appreciate the compliments, but first of all, I would tell you I don't think I've arrived at all. I am a very blessed man, and I am not ashamed of that. And it's not about material things. I'm a blessed man because I have a beautiful family, a wonderful life. I have great friends that continue to encourage me and push me like you, Anthony. But, it's important for me to also share what a lot of people are seeing at this podcast, or probably have known me in the past 5 or 10 years. They saw the middle or the end of the movie. Right. They didn't see when them credits were opening up in the beginning, where I really struggled, where I had to live with people. I had to borrow from people. Yeah. I had to learn from people. Yeah. I had to float checks. Like, I'm keeping it real right now. And I understand, just like some people are learning right now in Southern California, that things can change on a dime. Yeah. That's why, going back to your question about, will you always kill it? And what makes you nervous is because I know that while, you could have success one day, you could also have to be in the valley the next. So I try to keep myself humble. While I do trust God, and I trust that some of the lessons he's taught me, he'll probably never put me through that same test again because I passed. but I am not infallible, and I am not too high to be knocked down. So please know that I've had some very, very dark days financially, emotionally, mentally, and some kind of way God has just opened up a path for grace. And I'm very thankful for that. So going back to legacy, my legacy is tied into giving. And sometimes it's not always a physical thing. It's time, it's advice, it's just being an ear to listen. I love mentoring young people. I have 10 nieces and nephews, and I love spending time with them in addition to my son and just providing counsel. And sometimes are like, it ain't the 90s anymore, Uncle Kenny. But I think that some of what I have to say, they listen. Some of what I have to say and a lot of what I have to say, it inspires them. And that's another thing for me and my wife. We have the nieces and nephews over all the time because we want them to see an example of a loving couple. We want them to see people getting up and going to work and going after to get there. It's not that they don't see it at home, but to see an example, people that they don't see every day getting up and going after it. We want to be an example of what you and I probably only saw on TV growing up, which was the Cosby Show, right?
For sure.
So we want to be that kind of example that was only a television example that you and I had in the 80s and 90s.
Well, I'll say this as we get ready to close out. What I'm speaking to is a mentality and a mindset that I've always seen you have, right? You never say die. You don't allow what's going on in your life at that moment ever dictate how you show up or what it may look like. Now, it doesn't mean we may not have a conversation and you may be honest, be like, hey man, this is what I'm dealing with. But when you show up, Kenny is an encourager. You love on people. Like you've supported me. Like that's what I'm talking about. So that's another thing before we close up shop for this episode. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for the support that you've always shown me. You know, we were talking one night. This was probably like middle of last year, late last year, and he told me, he said, "Man, I don't think I ever told you this, man." But he said, "In 2020, man, your podcast got me through." I'm like, bro, you don't realize how big that is for somebody who is just looking to get their art into the world, hoping that somebody could experience something like that. And so, man, you've always, and that's not an exaggeration. He's always supported me and just spoke life into me. And so that type of person is invaluable to the kingdom, is invaluable to what somebody is trying to build. And so I pray that you never lose that thing about you. You don't never let life bog you down to a point that you don't like live in the fullness of who God has called you to be, because it's impacting people like me, you know, to go and do great things in the earth. So I say thank you once again, my brother.
You make it easy to support, so you got it.
Yeah, man. So, man, listen, this is another episode from Cultivating Konversations. I think last time I said, I don't know what I said, but it wasn't Cultivating Konversations. You look back and you be like, what did I say? But no, man, this is an episode of Cultivating Konversations where we curate cultivating conversations for the culture. I want to say thank you to my guest, Kenny. You know, it was a pleasure, man, and I hope that people are able to get in contact with you, however that is. Real quick, man, just tell the people, like, on social media or wherever, how they can reach you. You know, maybe somebody want to use you for a speaking engagement or something one day.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Kenny Braxton on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I'm KB Showpunny _74, and I'm also on Facebook. So just get at me. I love to talk to you, and appreciate you once again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Well, man, we shutting it down for another episode of Curating. See, that's what I said, Curating Konversations or something like that. Anyway, for Cultivating Konversations, man, I am your host, AntMoe, man. I love you. May the Lord keep you. We'll see you next week. Peace.